without them. Try a little tenderness.
And PTSD is it's a serious condition. It isn't, I mean, I think that you've heard a lot about post-traumatic stress now as a result of combat veterans coming back and having that.
Right.
I don't think that people understand the full range of what the symptoms and experiences are, because we're only hearing about veterans right now in that context. But it's applicable to other situations, and a lot of times trauma that happens early on in people's lives from physical or sexual abuse, which is, I have a very, very high incidence of my clients, men and women, who have both of those experiences, creates a condition where they're likely to be further traumatized in the future by their experience. And homelessness, if you all can imagine, is a really, really traumatizing experience.
And that, if you could explain a little bit about what it's like through their eyes to be living on the street, because I don't think people really realize everything that they go through. I mean, we see them and a lot of people think, oh, they probably live somewhere else and coming asking for money, you know, or something. Some of the people that have made it, you know, that decision to do that, but the majority of the people that are out there really have a horrible life. And and can you explain a little bit about
I could spend many hours on this, and I'm sure that I hope people can use their imaginations, but I think that one of the deadliest aspect of the experience of homelessness that I've observed and I've heard from people is that you cease to exist. You don't have any value as a human being, that you are not valued enough for people even to look at you as they pass you by in the street. And that removes you from a society in a sense of self, in a sense of worth, and you have no worth in this society, and that message is given to you over and over and over again. And people say, oh, we could go to a shelter. The city says, oh, there's health care for all. It's not true. And before people even go into the depth of understanding what's available, what's not available, and why people are homeless, they automatically simply refuse to acknowledge someone as human. And that is devastating. It puts, I mean, it's like, you know, excuse me, who am I? Where am I? Am I invisible? And that can have a lot of effects on people, as you could imagine. I want your viewers to really understand and put themselves in a position of feeling like there's nowhere in their lives in any given day where anyone knows them and addresses them as by their name or as a fully human being. They don't have money to go into a store and say, how's it going today? You know, hey, Pops, what another cup of coffee? There is not that social relationship. In the library, it's safe to go there. You can read and you can do stuff, but do you know anybody? Does anybody know you? Do you have an identity anywhere? Do you have any value or worth to anyone else? If you don't have money, you're not housed, you don't have a job, you might be dirty, you might smell bad, you know, you might be unable to control the voices that you're hearing, you might be shouting back at them, you might scare people. People may only look to you if you are female or even in many cases male as an object, and you can be assigned a variety of roles. A victim, a sexual object. The dehumanization, I think, is one of the most devastating aspects of it. Physically, it's very dangerous to be homeless. There's any number of really serious medical conditions that only homeless people experience. It's really interesting. It's almost another branch of medicine. And so it's generally, I would say, a pretty horrible experience.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
And I think the whole fact by not looking at people as you pass by is a way that if we don't look them in the eye, then we don't feel as guilty that they don't have a place to stay.
You know, and if your viewers can understand, and I think that a lot of people can, that it doesn't, to acknowledge someone as human is to give them a choice to interact with you or not. You have a choice to give money to panhandlers or not. You can choose to do it, but you have no responsibility to the responsibility as a human that we have to one another is to see each other, to witness each other, to look at someone in the face and say, nope, I don't. You know, it's good to see you though. How are you? And a lot of times what panhandlers, I have noticed, people who are panhandling say things like, when someone says no or doesn't respond to them, it's just like, God bless, have a nice day. It's almost like a mantra to keep reminding themselves that it's not just about them. And it's tragic. It's put this veil you know, this invisible barrier, and it's a wall that's been between people for a long time. So I'm sure that all of your viewers have heard things about the budget and the budget crises. And I think that looking at city budgets, it's very difficult to understand the minutia of how one cut will affect or how one policy change will affect. And I wanted to talk particularly about healthcare in San Francisco. The Department of Public Health has the largest city-funded budget department, and so as a result is taking the largest cuts. And they're in the millions and millions and millions of dollars. Those cuts are disproportionately affecting people who are receiving mental health treatment or substance abuse treatment, and those people disproportionately are very low income, or no income people. Services are being eliminated, not just cut by dollars, but being eliminated. Our program, which has a contract with the city for $350,000, has been eliminated, and we've actually been cut entirely 3 times this year, and twice we've fought and gotten our funding back. At this point, I don't think that we will. And just in terms of what that means, it's the idea is really frightening to us, to our community, to our clients, to our colleagues and our community of homeless services. There's a lot of other providers that we work with. That's alarming in and of itself. And I'm determined that we're going to survive in one way or another. So people call me, please, and ask me how you can help.
We have a phone
number
that
really simple things that you can do to help us. Not even about money. We need to get a website, among other things. So at this point, because our costs to provide our services are so low, all of our psychiatrists volunteer their time.
Yeah.
They work pro bono, and that literally translated is for the public good.
Before you continue, I want to read something from your page that you have. It costs $5,500 to keep someone involuntarily hospitalized in a psychiatric unit for 4 days.
Right.
Costs $34,675 to incarcerate one person in San Francisco County Jail for 1 year.
Yep.
And it costs $3,500 per year to provide restorative treatment and social supports for one person at Cadesus Outreach Services.
Yeah. This is the point that I was going to make. The services that we provide are very specifically designed to help people get what they need to stay out of the hospital and out of jail. And the alternatives for people, this is such a large issue, but because of the cuts in mental health services, not just this year or last year, but over the last 20 years, what we've seen is a disproportionate rise of people with psychiatric illnesses being incarcerated. And people who work in the field that I do know that there are and have been at least 10 to 15% of people who are incarcerated have serious psychiatric illnesses. That in itself is a pretty horrific number.
Yeah. The
Department of Justice, and from their own Bureau of Justice statistics put out in 2006, a very, very, very amazingly researched document that cites that 55% of all incarcerated people in this country, not just in California or San Francisco, through every system of incarceration, have a serious, what is considered by the DSM as a serious and disabling psychiatric illness.
55%.
55%. Now, that doesn't count the people that were too disabled to be interviewed at the time that this was being made. A high proportion of those people had histories of homelessness, and a very high proportion of those people had histories of sexual and physical abuse. More and more women are being incarcerated. To me, it's a terrifying number, and I'm really shocked that there isn't more outcry about this, because 1 in 4 people in this country will experience a psychiatric condition, and if 1 in 4 people in this country are at risk for incarceration, I think that there would be a huge amount of outcry. But just like the fact that people who are African American have a higher probability of being incarcerated, and that's been ignored. I mean, basically people accept that as fact. People are also accepting the mass incarceration of people with psychiatric illness as some form of response. And that, it's terrifying to me that our country accepts that.
Not as it's so horrible, that is happening as well because of the mental illness, but also look at how much more this costs than to find something that will help them on their feet again.
Yeah, which isn't much. It's not. It doesn't cost $34,000 a year to help someone get back on their feet.
Try a little tenderness, yeah.